My name is Hannah. I was 19 years old when I learned that adults can change your life without ever asking if you are ready for it. I didn't find out in a dramatic way. No shouting, no argument. Just a sentence that slipped out too casually to be taken back. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, trying to finish an online assignment before midnight. My lower back ached the way it always did now, a steady reminder that something in my body was not working the way it should. I had been dealing with it for almost a year. Physical therapy, painkillers, missed classes, missed shifts at work. Finally, a specialist had said what everyone had been avoiding. Surgery, not optional, not urgent in the right this second way, but necessary if I wanted my body to stop slowly betraying me. My parents knew all of this. They sat next to me during appointments. They nodded when the doctor explained timelines and costs. They told me we would figure it out. That's why I trusted them. My mom was standing by the counter that night, sorting mail. My dad was scrolling on his phone. Everything felt normal. Too normal. I emailed the hospital again. I said without looking up. They still haven't confirmed the surgery date. My mom didn't respond right away. That's because it's not happening anymore, she said. I froze. What? I asked. She glanced at me like I had misheard something obvious. The surgery. We canceled it. I stared at her, waiting for the rest of the sentence. The joke. The explanation. Something. You canceled it? I said. Yes, she replied. It wasn't the right time. My heart started beating faster, not panic yet, just confusion. The doctor said I shouldn't wait too long. You're young, my dad said without looking up. Your body can handle it. I pushed my laptop aside. Why would you cancel it without telling me? My mom sighed. Because we had to make a decision. That word again, decision. For who? I asked. My older brother, Luke, came in from the living room. He stopped when he saw my face. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said. Find out what? I asked, though my stomach already knew. Luke rubbed the back of his neck. I messed up. My mom cut in quickly. He had financial trouble. What does that have to do with my surgery? I asked. My dad finally looked up. We used the money. The room went quiet. The surgery fund, I said slowly. Yes, my mom replied. Temporarily. I felt something drop inside my chest. You gave it to him. He needed it more, she said. You can wait. Luke wouldn't look at me. I didn't ask for all of it, he muttered. But things were getting bad. I stared at all three of them. You didn't even ask me, I said. We're your parents, my mom replied. This is how families work. I laughed once, short and bitter. So you decided my pain was the most flexible thing in the house. My dad frowned. Don't be dramatic. I can't sit through class without numbness, I said. I can't sleep some nights. And you're still alive, my mom said. Still functioning. That word hit harder than she meant it to. Functioning. That was what I had always been. The one who adapted. The one who didn't complain too loudly. The one who could take less so others could take more. Luke finally spoke. You're stronger than me, Hannah. You always have been. I felt my throat tighten. That sentence explained everything. They didn't choose me because I mattered less. They chose me because I could survive being chosen last. I stood up slowly, my back flaring with pain as I did. You already decided, I said. So there's nothing left to talk about. My mom opened her mouth. You're overreacting. No, I said quietly. I'm reacting exactly enough. I went to my room and closed the door. Not slammed, just closed. That night, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. Not the words, the certainty behind them. They didn't cancel my surgery by mistake. They canceled it because they believed I would endure it. And that was the moment I stopped assuming adults knew what they were doing. I didn't confront them the next day. I didn't storm into the kitchen or demand explanations. I stayed in my room, attended my online classes, and pretended my body didn't hurt the way it did. On the surface, nothing changed. That was the strange part. Life went on like my future hadn't just been quietly postponed. At dinner, my mom asked if I wanted more rice. My dad complained about traffic. Luke avoided my eyes. They acted like the surgery was a canceled dentist appointment, not something that had taken over my life for months. 2 days later, my mom knocked on my door. "Can we talk?" she asked, already stepping inside. She sat on the edge of my bed like this was a conversation she'd rehearsed. "I know you're upset." "I'm not upset," I said. "I'm confused." She nodded, as if that proved her point. "You'll understand when you're older." I stared at her. "I'm 19. "You're still young," she said. "And sometimes parents have to make hard choices." "For who?" I asked. "For the family," she replied. That word again. Family. She explained it slowly, patiently, like she was teaching a child math. Luke's debts, the interest, the deadlines, how close things were to getting serious. She said it like it was weather, unavoidable, nobody's fault. "You'll still get the surgery," she added. "Just later." "How much later?" I asked. She hesitated. "When things stabilize." I realized then that later didn't have a date. "And what if my condition gets worse?" I asked. My mom smiled tightly. "Don't spiral." That was her favorite word when she didn't want to deal with something. I asked one more question. "Why didn't you tell me before canceling it?" She looked surprised. "We didn't want to stress you." I almost laughed. They hadn't told me because if they had, I might have said no. After she left, I opened my email and searched for the hospital confirmation. There it was. A cancellation notice dated 2 weeks ago, authorized by my mother as financial contact. I stared at the screen. They hadn't just made a choice. They had made it officially, cleanly, in writing. That night, I opened a document on my laptop. I titled it, "Nothing." Just today's date. I typed, "They canceled my surgery without telling me." It felt dramatic seeing it written out like that, but I didn't delete it. Over the next few days, small things started adding up. Luke asked if I could cover groceries for a bit since money was tight. My dad joked that I was low maintenance anyway. My mom reminded me how much they had sacrificed for me growing up. Every sentence carried the same message. "You can handle it. You always do." One afternoon, my back pain got so bad I had to sit on the floor halfway up the stairs. My mom walked past me and said, "You should stretch more." That night, I added another line to the document. Pain stopped me on the stairs. No one noticed. I didn't know why I was writing things down. I told myself it was just to organize my thoughts. But something about seeing the words lined up made it harder to ignore the pattern. They weren't cruel, they were confident. Confident that I would adapt, that I wouldn't make trouble, that whatever happened to my body was manageable compared to Luke's mess. A week later, I got an email from the hospital, a generic follow-up asking if I wanted to reschedule when circumstances allowed. I stared at the phrase, circumstances. I forwarded the email to my mom. She replied 5 hours later, "We'll talk about it later. Please don't create stress." That was when I realized something important. They weren't trying to fix the situation. They were trying to keep it quiet. That night, I changed the title of the document. I called it "Just in Case." I started adding dates, exact phrases, who said what, not because I planned to use it, but because I was scared that if I didn't, one day they would say none of this happened, and no one would believe me. At first, the document felt silly. Every time I opened it, I wondered what I thought I was doing. I wasn't planning to sue anyone. I wasn't trying to expose my family. I was just typing into a blank page on my laptop, alone in my room, while everyone else watched TV downstairs like nothing had happened. Still, I kept writing. Not essays, not emotional paragraphs, just facts. March 12th. Mom canceled surgery without telling me. March 14th. Dad said I'm low maintenance. March 16th. Pain stopped me on the stairs. I didn't add opinions. I didn't write how angry or hurt I felt. I wrote what happened, when it happened, and who was in the room. It made the situation feel smaller, manageable. What scared me was how quickly the details started stacking up. One morning, Luke knocked on my door and asked if I could spot him some money just for a week. When I reminded him that he had taken the surgery fund, he laughed like I was joking. "You're still on about that?" he said. "It'll work out." I wrote it down. That same day, my mom told me I should stop Googling my condition because the internet makes everything worse. I wrote that down too. By the end of the week, the document was 3 pages long, not because big things kept happening, but because small things never stopped. What surprised me most was how normal everything looked from the outside. If someone had walked into our house, they would have seen a regular family. Parents making dinner, a brother complaining about work, me sitting quietly with my laptop. They wouldn't have seen the way I planned my movements to avoid pain, or the way my parents spoke about my body like it was something that could be paused and resumed when convenient. One afternoon, I overheard my mom on the phone in the kitchen. "She'll be fine," she said. "She's not like Luke. She doesn't fall apart." I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. That sentence stayed with me. That night, I added another line. March 19th. Mom said I don't fall apart. I started noticing how often my strength was used as an excuse. When I asked about rescheduling the surgery, my dad said, "Let's not rush." When I mentioned numbness in my leg, my mom said, "You've always been sensitive." When I asked if they regretted canceling it, Luke said, "Don't make this about you." I wrote it all down. I didn't know why yet, but something inside me had shifted. I stopped explaining myself. Instead of arguing, I observed. Instead of asking for reassurance, I listened. It was easier to see the pattern when I wasn't trying to fix it. A few days later, I had a follow-up appointment with a different doctor. My parents didn't come. They said they were busy. The doctor looked at my chart, then at me. "Why was the surgery canceled?" I hesitated. The answer felt heavier than it should have. "My family decided to postpone it," I said. He frowned. "Without consulting you?" I shrugged. "They're paying." He leaned back slightly. "That doesn't mean they get to decide." That was the first time someone outside my family said that out loud. On the way home, I added another note. March 23rd. Doctor said they don't get to decide. That sentence sat on the page like a warning. That night, I reread everything I had written. Dates, quotes, small moments I would have forgotten if they weren't written down. I realized something uncomfortable. If things went wrong, if my condition worsened, if I lost more mobility, if I needed help later, this story could be rewritten. They could say I agreed, that I didn't speak up, that I was fine. And without proof, no one would question it. That's when I renamed the file, from just in case to timeline. I didn't tell anyone about it. I just kept writing, because for the first time, I understood something important. If I didn't protect the truth, no one else would. I didn't plan to tell anyone. If I'm being honest, part of me still hoped I could handle it quietly, that I could wait it out, manage the pain, and let things stabilize the way my parents kept promising. I had been trained my whole life to believe that endurance was the same thing as maturity. The moment that changed wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday afternoon at the campus health clinic. I was there because my left leg had gone numb during class. Not pins and needles numb, the kind where you stand up and don't trust the floor anymore. The nurse checked my vitals and sent me in to see Dr. Patel, a physician I hadn't met before. She scrolled through my chart, then looked up at me. "You were scheduled for surgery," she said. "Yes," I replied. "It was canceled." She raised an eyebrow. "By you?" I shook my head. "By my parents." She stopped typing. "How old are you?" she asked. 19. "And you didn't consent to canceling it?" "No." She leaned back in her chair, studying me in a way that felt different. Not judgmental, focused. "Do you understand the risks of delaying this procedure?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "That's why I didn't want to." She nodded once. "Okay." That was it. Just okay. But something about the way she said it told me she was taking me seriously. She asked me to explain what had happened. Not emotionally, just the sequence. I found myself speaking the way I wrote. Dates, facts, decisions made without me. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "This isn't a family disagreement," she said. "This is a medical decision made without the patient's consent." I stared at her. She continued, "Whoever is paying doesn't get to override your autonomy." Autonomy. I had never heard that word used about me before. She asked if I had documentation, appointment records, emails, anything showing the cancellation wasn't my choice. I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. I showed her the hospital email, the date, my mom's name listed as financial contact. She frowned. "I need to note this." As she typed, I felt something strange in my chest. Not fear, relief. Someone was writing it down besides me. Before I left, she gave me a referral to a patient advocate. "They can help you navigate this," she said, "especially if there's family pressure involved." Family pressure. I walked out of the clinic feeling unsteady, but not from pain. That evening, my mom noticed the referral paperwork on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. "A patient advocate," I said. "The doctor suggested it." Her expression tightened immediately. "Why would you do that?" "Because this is my body," I replied. She shook her head. "You're blowing this out of proportion." The words didn't land the way they used to. Later that night, my dad came to my room. "You need to stop talking to outsiders about this," he said. "It makes us look bad." That sentence stayed with me. Not "it's wrong," not "we made a mistake," just "it makes us look bad." I added another entry to the timeline. March 28th. Dad said I shouldn't talk to outsiders. The next day, I met with the patient advocate. Her name was Rosa. She didn't rush me. She asked questions and waited for answers. When I explained the situation, she didn't interrupt. "Do you feel pressured to comply with your family's decision?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Do you feel safe disagreeing with them?" I thought about it. "Not really." She nodded and typed something I couldn't see. "This may qualify as coercion," she said calmly. That word hit harder than autonomy. Coercion meant there was a line, and someone had crossed it. She explained my options: separating medical authority, updating consent forms, what would happen if my condition worsened while treatment was delayed. "This doesn't mean your family is evil," she added. "It means they don't get to decide for you." When I got home, Luke was waiting in the living room. "Why are doctors calling Mom?" he demanded. "What did you tell them?" "I told the truth," I said. He scoffed. "You're going to mess everything up." I looked at him and realized something. They were afraid. Not for me. For themselves. That night, I added one final line to the timeline. March 30th. First time someone outside the family said this wasn't normal. And for the first time, I believed it. Things changed after that. Not all at once. Not in a way you could point to and say, "This is where it broke." It was quieter than that. Like a crack spreading through glass after you've already heard the impact. The first call came from the hospital billing office. I was in my room when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to pick up. "Hi, is this Hannah?" a woman asked. "I'm calling regarding a cancellation request we received." "Yes," I said carefully. She paused. "We're updating consent records. You're listed as the patient, but the cancellation was authorized by a third party. We just need to confirm. Did you approve that?" "No," I said. "I didn't." There was a short silence. Not awkward, professional. "Thank you for clarifying," she said. "We'll make a note." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not because I had done something dramatic, because I hadn't done anything at all. That afternoon, my mom confronted me in the kitchen. "Why is the hospital calling?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe because it's my surgery." Her mouth tightened. "You're creating problems." "I didn't ask them to call," I replied. She leaned closer. "You know what you're doing." For the first time, I didn't defend myself. "I know what I'm not doing," I said. "I'm not lying anymore." Her face changed then, not anger, fear. That evening, Luke sent me a text. "Can we talk? You're making this harder than it needs to be." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my timeline and added another entry. April 2nd, hospital called to confirm consent. I said no. The next day, Rosa emailed me. Short, direct. We've updated your records. No further medical decisions can be made without your explicit approval. I read the sentence 3 times. That was it. No confrontation, no speech, just a boundary, quietly placed. The fallout came fast. My dad accused me of going behind their backs. My mom said I was ungrateful. Luke said I was risking his stability. None of them asked how my leg felt. They kept using the same words: family, responsibility, sacrifice. But now those words sounded different. They weren't explanations. They were defenses. One night, my dad sat across from me at the table. "You know this could get serious," he said. "If doctors start documenting things, it creates records." "That's kind of the point," I said. He stared at me. "Do you want people thinking we mistreated you?" I looked at him. "I want people to know what happened." He didn't answer. A week later, the hospital sent a new message. "Your procedure can be rescheduled pending your confirmation." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't click yes. Not yet. Because something else had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't rushing to fix what they had broken. I was letting the process move at its own pace. My parents didn't know how to handle that. They started calling more, asking more questions, offering help that came with conditions. "We just want to be involved," my mom said. "Involved or in control?" I asked. She didn't like that. One afternoon, Luke showed up at my door. "This is spiraling," he said. "People are asking questions." "Who?" I asked. "Doctors? Insurance?" "Mom's freaking out." I nodded. "That happens when things are documented." "You could stop this," he said. "Just tell them it was a misunderstanding." I looked at him. "Was it?" He didn't answer. That night, I added another line to the timeline. April 9th asked to say it was a misunderstanding. I finally understood something then. I hadn't triggered consequences. I had stopped absorbing them. Everything that was happening now was simply gravity doing its job. They made a choice in silence. Now it was making noise. The shift didn't come with shouting. It came with strategy. A week after the hospital updated my consent records, my parents asked me to sit down with them. Not in the kitchen, in the living room. The serious room. The one where conversations were meant to end a certain way. My mom sat upright on the couch. My dad stood near the window, arms crossed. Luke leaned against the wall, already annoyed. "We need to reset," my mom said. I stayed standing. "This is getting out of hand," my dad added. "Doctors, paperwork, calls. It doesn't need to be like this." "It already is," I said. My mom folded her hands. "We're worried about you." I almost laughed. "About my health?" I asked. She hesitated. "About the situation." There it was. She slid a piece of paper across the coffee table. A printed plan. Bullet points. Timelines. It looked official. They had planned this. "We talked it through," she said. "If you agree to pause the surgery for 6 more months, we'll help you more financially. Therapy. Better pain management. Physical support." I stared at the paper. "And Luke?" I asked. "He just needs time," my dad said. "This gives him breathing room." "So I give up my treatment," I said. "So he gets relief." Luke snapped. "You're acting like a martyr." I looked at him. "You're acting like my body is negotiable." The room went quiet. My mom leaned forward. "You're being inflexible." "No," I said. "I'm being clear." She changed tactics then. Softer voice. Familiar guilt. "After everything we've done for you," she said. "We paid for your schooling, your food, your life." I felt something settle into place. This wasn't about compromise. This was about reclaiming authority. "I didn't ask you to cancel my surgery," I said. "You did that on your own." My dad's jaw tightened. "You're risking family stability." I nodded. "You already did." That was when my mom said the thing she probably thought would end the conversation. "If you keep this up," she said, "don't expect us to support you anymore." There it was. The threat. I took a breath. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "I already don't have your support," I said. "I just stopped pretending I did." Luke scoffed. You think you're so righteous? I looked at him. I think I'm done. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I picked up my bag and walked out of the room. Behind me, my mom called my name. Not softly, sharply. Hannah, don't do this. I turned around. I didn't, I said. You did. That night, my phone filled with messages. My dad warning me about insurance complications. My mom accusing me of tearing the family apart. Luke saying I was selfish. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded everything to Rosa. She replied with one line. Thank you. This confirms coercive pressure. That word again. Coercive. The next morning, I received an email from the hospital's patient advocacy office. Given the documentation provided, we will proceed directly with patient-directed care. I stared at the screen. This wasn't revenge. This was systems doing what they were built to do. Once someone finally told the truth. That afternoon, my parents showed up at my door unannounced. My mom looked calm, too calm. We just want to talk, she said. I'm not available, I replied. You can't shut us out, my dad said. I can, I said. Watch me. They stood there for a moment, stunned. My mom's voice cracked. You're really going to do this? I nodded. I already am. As I closed the door, my heart pounded so hard I thought I might throw up. But underneath the fear was something steady. They weren't in control anymore. And that terrified them. Because when control fails, all that's left is accountability. And they weren't ready for that. The surgery was scheduled 3 weeks later. Not because everything magically resolved, but because once the paperwork was clean, nothing could stop it anymore. No family discussions. No delays disguised as concern. Just a date, a time, and my name on every form that mattered. The night before, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. The same walls, the same hallway. But something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. In the morning, I packed a small bag and called a rideshare. My parents were already awake. My mom stood in the kitchen holding her coffee like a prop. You didn't have to do this alone, she said. I paused at the door. I didn't, I replied. You chose not to be here. She opened her mouth, then closed it. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Paperwork, wristband, questions asked directly to me, not around me. When the nurse asked who my emergency contact was, I named Rosa, not my parents, not my brother. That detail mattered more than I expected. When I woke up after surgery, groggy and aching, the doctor told me it had gone well. The damage hadn't progressed too far. Waiting longer would have changed that. I stared at the ceiling and let that sink in. If I had listened, if I had waited, if I had stayed quiet. Recovery was slow, but clean. Pain with purpose felt different than pain without choice. I stayed with a friend for a while. Space helped. Silence helped. My parents called less. Luke didn't call at all. Weeks later, my mom sent a long message. Not an apology, an explanation. She wrote about stress, about fear, about how families make hard choices, about how I had hurt them by involving outsiders. I read it once and didn't respond, because for the first time, I could see the truth clearly. They didn't lose me because I went too far. They lost me because when forced to choose, they chose convenience over consent. They chose the child who broke loudly over the one who endured quietly. And endurance, I learned, is not the same as obligation. A month after my surgery, I moved out. Nothing dramatic. Just boxes. A small apartment. A door that closed behind me without anyone asking where I was going. My parents didn't try to stop me. I think by then they understood. This wasn't rebellion. It was separation. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. If I regret involving doctors, advocates, records. If I regret letting things become official, I don't. Because what I learned is simple. If your pain is always the easiest thing to postpone, you will be postponed forever. I didn't ruin my family. I exposed a hierarchy that already existed. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. My body is healing now. So is something else. Not the relationship, that may never recover, but myself. And that was worth everything they said I was risking.